So this video is a context video. So just so you know, I've been a teacher for 26 years and I've had a large variety of students, some of them from Makerspace, some of them trying to build portfolios to get into art school, some just curious and wanting to learn to be more creative. And you know, the kids that I remember most clearly are not the kids who are ready when they showed up. And of course, those are fantastic students to have. You dive in and you get to work. But most of us aren't wired that way. And not only is that okay, that's something that I really enjoy doing, is opening up our capacities to create things and to do creative work. And I've worked on, let's see, I don't know, I'm not so good at making videos, so I don't know if you can see this, but this is the current relearning creativity. Sometimes the relationship that we have to our own creativity breaks down, and this is a book that helps unlock that. Not only do I teach art and technology, but I've learned a lot about pedagogy and educational philosophy. So I take this stuff really deep. And I have a Hokusai Mastery book, as well as this one that's currently available. But let me just show you, Hokusai is one of my absolute favorites. This guy, he is the master of observation. He brings us Edo Japan in a way that, you know, nobody else can do. He's doing this, well, not nobody. You can learn to do it. That's kind of the point. This isn't my actual book, but this is the Mishner collection. It's just phenomenal. You can look inside this guy's brain. And these sketchbooks were built as teaching tools, as well as his process for preparing to make woodblock prints. So, I mean, he's catching people doing daily life stuff, silly things, fun things. The sumos preparing each other for a match. The sumos in the match. And one of the things my students, my ninth graders, would, you know, be super irritated but also thrilled, is we would go in during the dance rehearsals, and, you know, that's something that I still do now, is trying to draw people in motion. It's super fun. It's also super frustrating. Well, let's see if I don't think I can find it. Yeah, there we go. You know, capturing people in motion. How do you do that? Well, you do it, first of all, by focusing on the gesture. You don't try to get everything right. You try to get it down. And that's something that Hokusai teaches really well. Anyway, so I highly recommend those two books, people who are creatively stuck or people who want to learn how to collect observations into something you can turn into something else, a work of art series. I'm not focusing right now on the portfolio piece. I've gotten kids in phenomenal schools, but that's not the point. The point is that the foundation has to be built. And if you're one of those people who aren't immediately driven and ready, not only is that okay, that can actually mean that you're ready to build a creative process that can take you all of the way. But because you're taking the time to build it yourself, that gives you the power to create it on purpose. And that is the beautiful thing about being able to say, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing. You find a guide. It doesn't have to be me by any means. There's a million great people on YouTube. And of course more in the world. But the point is that you have to be able to put yourself in a position to create your own work, but create your creative self along the way. And metacognition is a tough thing, especially for artists. We do so much intuitively that we don't always know how we come up with the ideas, but that's what the system is for, okay? So the Hokusai workbook and the Cezanne Creativity Recapture book, They function on a foundation of the idea of sketchbooks. Sketchbooks are our workspace. We think visually and we think out loud. If the pencil's not moving, the visual part of our brain isn't engaged the same way. And so when I have my creative suite designed as a cycle, there's a reason why I created the software that way. When I finally put this together, I realized I'd recreated a digital version of my classroom. It's a cycle that you go through. You start with the sketchbook. You figure out what your ideas are. And then here, this is a second trip around the sketchbook. Now I'm not taking individual pieces as just observations. Now I'm collecting them. This is the second trip around where the sketchbook becomes a way to organize and build the elements in such a way that now I can start using these images to imagine my next work of art, the actual paintings. And so the sketchbook becomes a workspace where you can structure your thinking. Now, in this case, I'm using a Picasso lens. Sometimes I use Cezanne. And the reason I pick those two artists to bring up right now is that Picasso is on the super linear, well, not linear, that's the wrong way to describe it. He's a conceptual innovator. He pushes very specific ideas and then arranges the images to accommodate and send the message. Cezanne, on the other hand, explores. He's constantly painting, painting, painting. He's looking for the idea to emerge. Two totally different strategies. And that's the beautiful thing about Hokusai, is that Hokusai actually uses both. And so between those three artists, that's usually how I've been talking about it, at least recently. But the whole point is that we often ask ourselves, well, why can't I make this piece of work function? How come I don't know what to draw? Why do I feel like I'm losing momentum? Why am I so anxious when I begin to draw? And it's because you don't have a creative process. And so that's what this whole thing is designed to do, is to give you a creative process. And I've got a couple other products, a card deck that I'm working on. The app actually helps build that as well. The apps that I build are the tools that I use. So I'm not pitching things that I don't actually use, and I create the things that I actually need, and I create them because they don't exist. And so, I'm not traditional capitalist here. Got to keep the lights on, of course, but I want you to understand, at least to the ability that I'm able to help, I want you to understand how the pieces fit together. I want you to have the tools to construct your vision moving forward. And by using Sketchbook Study, we're doing something really incredible. We're getting into the heads of artists, learning their creative process, and by going through their creative process, we find ourselves up against the same challenges. And this actually is interesting because art done in this way, you begin to share this weird human creative experience with somebody who's been dead for centuries in some cases. It goes all the way back to the Lascaux Caves. The reason we can look at the cave paintings and feel something is because that hardware, that wiring, that human experience is still available and it's part of all of us. Otherwise, art wouldn't work at all. And in order for us to respond and see a work of art and feel, those pieces have to be inside. But how to access them? Well, you need strategies for that. You need a system for that. And you need a creative process that helps you use them to make what you want to make. Because let's face it, the world does not need more mediocrity. We've got so much stuff now, but we don't have so much meaning. And that can only come from you finding your way to your true work from your true self and starting that evolution. Because when I was young, I used to worry that I wouldn't have enough ideas. I would run out. If I didn't, do some certain things, I would have these few stories to tell from my life, and that's it. And what I found is the opposite is true. When you build these systems and you use these structures and you put in the hours, it actually sets you free, because Now I have too many ideas. If you gave me 100 years, I couldn't possibly finish the amount of work that I could do. And I think that I'm more of a teacher than an artist in a lot of important respects. I want people to experience the creativity more than I want the credit for the work. That's part of my personal journey. I'm learning nuts and bolts of marketing. I'm learning that maybe I do want to put my portfolios out in more structured ways. But my personal vision has always been, how do I unlock this in other people? And so, if that's something you're interested in, please, watch the videos, try the software if that's helpful to you. Look at the books if I'm solving problems that you have. But I want you to think about, what is your creative journey? And what direction do you need to go in to gain control, to feel confident, and to enter into your creative flow with confidence, vision, and the sense of joy that makes the work feel rich and powerful on the other side, the people who are looking at it. So that's it for now. I guess all the like and subscribe stuff. But apocrino.com, APOKRINO.com, COM. And thanks for making it this far if you've watched this whole video. Thanks. Bye-bye.